This is Daishin Elementary School in Shincheon, downtown Seoul. A boy is rushing to a 5th grade class that is about to begin. In the class is an 11-year-old boy, Cho Sung-won. He stands out due to his shaven head. He is a child monk, 3 years into the Buddhist priesthood.
9살 때 출가로 했습니다. 잘 안 놀아줘요, 친구들.
왜요?
제가요. 친구들도 없고요. 그리고 친구들이 저한테 있으면요 놀리고요 안 논다고 해요.
후회하지 않았어요?
후회하지는 않았어요.
The young monk was given the title Kyungwon, and he returns to Bongwon Temple in Shincheon after school. He resides there, going outside for school, but returning to the temple at the end of each day. Bongwon Temple sits in a secluded site in the heart of Seoul, and it is where Buddhism borders on the secular world. Yet it is an abode of ordinary people. This is Bongwon-dong at Sodaemun, or the West Gate District in Seoul. Here exists a town unique in the world, not to be found elsewhere. It forms the neighborhood that surrounds Bongwon Temple, christened the New Sanctuary. About 200 residents make up this religious community, and visitors are greeted by something novel as they enter its gates. They are name tablets that contain both the Buddhist and actual names of the faithful. The houses in this highly unusual district do not look much different from any others, but they are all residences for monks of the temple. They were built as housing for monks following the path of religion, and there are 2 monks in this particular household. One of them is the child priest Kyungwon, who lives here with the rest of his family.
깔고 앉으면 안 되죠? 어? 예쁘게 해놓고 한쪽으로 해놓고 앉아 있어야지 이게 돼요? 안 되지?
His mother, Lee Myung-ja, does not always treat her son as a child because he deserves respect for treading the path to the priesthood.
혼자 스스로 이제 다 할 줄 알아야 돼요. 응? 네. 조금 시작. 바지 벗고요. 아이고. 항상 단정하게. 항상 스님은 마음가짐이 잘 돼 있어야 돼.
반야신경은 다 외웠지 이제 확실히. 요새는 학교 공부가 너무 많아가지고 공부를 그래. 저 한 거, 안 거 또 시작되잖아. 또 방학 되면 그때 또 공부 열심히 하면 되니까 방학 때 아직 새벽 기도도 열심히 하고. 우리 경원 스님이 근기가 있어서 잘할 거야. 잘해서 훌륭한 스님 될 거야. 아빠 믿어 그냥.
This is the Reverend Sung-woo, who happens to be his father. Both father and son have now dedicated their lives to the worship of Buddha.
오히려는 깨달음을 구하고 깨달음을 구해서 부처님이 되는 것이고 또 아래로는 중생들.
Some 60 monks reside in the vicinity, in some 30 residences. They include transmitters of tradition, as well as officially designated intangible cultural assets. Bongwon Temple is the largest sanctuary in the country for married Buddhist priests. They live by Buddha's teaching at a junction of two realms, here at Bongwon Temple. And needless to say, their lives are not ordinary. Living almost next door to monk Kyung-won is the priest Bop-san. He's the man sawing in the yard, and he is one among 3 brothers in his family who joined the priesthood. At the moment, he's busy making frameworks for Buddhist tankas.
정아, 이틀 다 됐다. 만나봐 이제.
손 아프니까 이걸 이렇게 잡.
얼른 내놓고 지금.
졸린가?
힘도 돼?
Moon Jung is his second daughter. She can make tanchong, or colored roof ornaments, the 48th intangible cultural asset. This is one reason why Bop-san is so proud of her. It's more than ordinarily hard to accept the fact that your father is a monk, but she acknowledged it and went a step further, merging her own life with and finding a meaning in Buddhism. Their interests are strongly similar, and so they have a lot to talk about.
우리나라 사시님은 아주 극히 사실적이지 않고 아주 해학적이거든요. 인간과 친숙하기 때문에.
너무 적잖아. 이제 구조에 맞춰서 그쪽에.
치즈 넣고 이제 좀 이렇게 튀게 하면은 괜찮아요. 여러분은 거기 앉아. 해가면서
조금 더 크게.
But it would not be true to say she was sympathetic toward her father from the beginning. She experienced much anguish before she adjusted to his path.
여름에 봉헌사에 인연을 맺게 된 거는 저희 할아버지 때부터였는데 큰아빠가 먼저 출가를 하시고 그다음 작은아빠가 또 출가를 하시고 제가 국민학교 5학년 때 그러니까 다 커서 저희 아버님이 출가를 그다음에 하셨어요. 저희 동네에서 살았기 때문에 뭐 동네에서는 저 아무런 꺼리낌이 없었거든요. 그런데 아무래도 지금 이 봉헌동에서 나가게 되면 다른 사람의 그 시선을 의식하지 않을 수가 없었는데 그러니까 크니까는 또 괜찮더라고요.
저 사람도 찍었어요? 저기 또 외국 사람? 그래 전화 드릴게요. 네. 저 언제 명부전 지금 외곽 그거 들어간대요?
네,
외곽 단차?
안쪽에는 거의 다 돼가는 것 같은데 지금 이제 그거 끝나가지고 또 삼전 불전도 하잖아요. 엄청나겠네. 그거는 하도 커서.
사부님 일인데 저희가 가서 해야 될 텐데
글쎄 뭐
달갑죠.
애기 엄마 때까지 뭐 손이 바빠서 가지고 거지.
그러니까요. 여기 가까이 살면서도 인사도 못 드리고 아주 죄송스러워 죽겠어 사람들.
사부님한테
네.
할 수 없으면 이해하시잖아요. 그냥 바쁘니까.
Colors and Buddhist paintings, decorations found nowhere else, grace the main hall, as well as the 3,000 Buddha sanctum. Hanging at the altar of Hades and other buildings currently under construction at the Bongwon Temple is the finest work created by Reverend Man Bong. Bongwon Temple was where Man Bong learned and mastered the art of creating tankas, and is where he passes his skills on to his students. At making Buddhist paintings, Man Bong is one of the best, even at 90. His special talent is creating colored ornaments, skills designated as the 50th intangible cultural asset. He chose creating Buddhas and danchong with his brush as his particular method of discipline, an expression of faith in his heart. In his view, painting is an act that brings the Buddha in his heart outside, and the whole world is a great canvas to be filled with an even greater mandala. Even at the age of 90, he still won't let his brushes rest for a day, for he considers painting a sacred duty. He has painted many Buddhist masterpieces at various temples and palaces, and even created cultural assets. Before liberation in the late 40s, he applied the colors at Pyohun Temple in Mount Kungang. He is currently working on decorations for the 3000 Buddha Sanctum, his last masterpiece of this century. And as Man Bong has resided here at Bongwon, it has become a place of pilgrimage for Buddhist painters from around the country. They come to Man Bong to partake of this skill, and thus tradition lives on. There's another child priest who visits Bongwon every Monday. He is the 12-year-old monk Bop Son from Uijeongbu. He's been making visits for several months now. He has become a familiar sight to most of the priests at Bongwon. Even the oldest monk here, who's only met him a few times, is aware that he has to travel some 2 hours to get here. Bop Son received his ordination as a Buddhist priest at Sun Am Temple in Cholla Province, and he has a friend to visit. It is none other than monk Kyung Won.
들어오세요. 등만 드시러 오셨어요? 등만 드시러? 등만 드셔. 한 분은 병원 손님은 치료하시고 저 손님은 붙이시고 그래. 빨리 와서.
With the celebration of Buddha's birth coming near, Kyung Won's family is busy making lamps. Although Kyung Won is a year younger, they hold the same rank as priests because they were ordained the same day. Even so, Bop Son looks after Kyung Won as if he were an older brother.
그렇게 정성스럽게 했다가는 언제 해요? 어느 세월에?
Even so, Bop Son looks after Kyung Won like an older brother. It is because Bop Son also knows how difficult it is to lead the life of a monk, leaving the world behind but continuing to study at such a young age. Bongwon Temple conducts a Buddhist music school at 2 o'clock every Monday and Tuesday afternoon. It is organized by the Yongsan-jae Ceremony Preservation Association and teaches how to make music with Buddhist symbols. And priest Song Am is another reason for the young monk Bop Son's attachment to Bongwon. He happens to be the skill holder for the Yongsan-jae ritual.
학교는 더 보고 왔어.
저는 멀어가지고요. 조퇴하고요. 저는 다 하고 왔어요.
아, 그랬어? 그럼 공부도 잘해야 돼. 예, 학교 공부도 잘해야 한다.
네.
그래야 이제 일하면 아주 훌륭한 사람이 되지.
네.
또 신임으로서 이제 또 훌륭한 신임이 되고. 그래 이제 저희 또 서남사 강원에 가서 또 글 배고 그래야 돼 이제. 그리고 또 우리 이제.
The eldest monk is proud of these two young monks following in his footsteps.
아이고 고맙다. 아저들 그래 나가 저 공부들 해.
Many other monks come and attend these sessions to learn Buddhist music. This music is performed during Buddhist ceremonies, and it is done using their voices only. Song Am has a reputation for deep, booming chants, and his chants are said to be expressions of profound knowledge. The Bongwon Temple College of Buddhist Music specializes in teaching this religious music. Both monks Bop Son and Kyung Won are learning it as an instrument of daily discipline. But Buddhist music is not something that can be mastered in a few days of lessons.
범패는 제가 너무 심하고 방대하고 아주 아름답고 우리 그 불교에서는 없어서도 안 될 것이고 꼭 이것이 유지돼 가지고 맥이 이어져야 되는 그런 거에 그것 때문에 제가 공부를 하게 됐어요. 그리고 우리나라 국악도 좋은 그것이지만 우리 범패 이건 정말로 내가 그것 때문에 지금 이 공부를 머리를 깎고 지금 공부를 하고 있는 거거든요.
Reverend Song Am began his Buddhist music lessons at the age of 12, in addition to the monk's dance and the Yongsan-je ritual. Many artists were once under his tutelage. An enigmatic fragrance and mystery of Bongwon Temple pervades their every movement.
어떤 사람들이 있어요?
어디?
선생님 그 제자들이 유명한 사람들.
이해준 이지막이지. 그 전에 이제 이화대학에 저 김혜자라고 그 무용 저 교수가 있었어. 또 시방 기독교로 돌아선 문일지라고 있어. 문일지 서울 저희 무용 시리무용단 단장으로 있던 그 문일지 또 시방 중앙대학교 교수로 있는 국수호.
Once again, the sun sets on them all the same. Thus, the people of Bongwon have created lives for themselves in an isolated island apart from the world. When night descends upon the temple, the people retreat to a realm of their own, away from the secular world of neon, noise, and traffic. In that realm, in a sense, waves come and go in a sea of bliss and enlightenment. But night in this community of monks has an atmosphere different from other temples. As only monks reside in the houses down below, the main gate is never shut firmly, like a mountain sanctuaries would be. The portals on Kyungwon's house are no exception. The child priest will have finished with his studies of secular textbooks, and then it is time to study the knowledge necessary for his future life as a priest. It is a field of study no one from the world outside can teach him. Others on the same path are having trouble sleeping tonight as well, for they must cope with a way of life different from that of secular mortals. That is why Bongwon becomes a lone island, floating in the vastness of a worldly ocean called Seoul. An island not so easily influenced by the crowds and the materialism of the world outside. The sun rises and morning arrives once again, just as it does outside. However, it is not necessarily the same sun. There is unusually frantic activity at Kyungham's. There will be a mass offering and supper at the temple today. The mass offering means having all the monks in the temple dine together. And Kyungham has been the Kongyangju, or kitchen master, for the last 35 years, responsible for cooking on days like these. He knows what is going on in the kitchen just by hearing the sounds of the cooking rice. Most of the monks take their meals separately by cooking their own food at home, but not when there's a mass offering at the temple. It is through events such as these that everyone at the temple is reminded of the fact that it is a big family. Kyungam cannot allow mistakes in preparing meals, for every temple member will participate in this act of celebration. Thus, each of Kyungam's movements is cautious in the extreme, for this meal will provide nourishment for the monks in their pursuit of discipline and enlightenment. Mass offerings at Bongwon are generally held in the lecture hall below the 3,000 Buddha sanctum. All the remaining monks at Bongwon are gathered at the sanctum for this day. This mass offering at Bongwon is somewhat different from similar events held at other temples. These offerings do not take place every day. They do occur when everyone is present at the temple, but when the assembly disbands, a separate date is arranged. Here at Bongwon Temple, assemblies such as this one take place on special occasions, as a gesture of one monk making an offering to another. They are conducted according to the rules set by Yongsan-je Table Protocol. These offerings became part of monastic discipline. During the ceremony, each procedure is carried out with songs and chanting to acknowledge the food as good nourishment on the path to higher learning. It is a unique source of pride for the temple.
지금부터 250년 전 이곳에 법당을 옮겨 짓고 세절이라고 부르게 되었습니다. 그 후 1945년 해방이 돼서 해방기념관으로 크게 법당을 짓고 또한 새로 지었다고 해서 세절이라고 불렀습니다. 그 1989년 대한민국의 제일 큰 목조 건물을 지어서 96년에 준공을 봐서 역시 또한 세절이라고 지금까지 불러내려오고 있습니다.
Bongwon Temple is known as New Abbey because of its perpetual novelty for Solats. It began as Banya or Panyadra Temple on the site of the present Yonsei University during Shilla times. It earned its nickname when it moved to a new location during the Chosun period, and the new abbey later was granted the name Bongwon by King Yeongjo. This was the temple closest to the capital at the time, and served as a headquarters for monastic discipline in the 8 provinces during Cheongjo's reign to maintain collective discipline. Its location near the capital brought a change in its function when bans on priests entering Seoul were lifted. The monk Lee Dong-in traveled to Japan and returned with new learning he taught and disseminated among reformers such as Kim Ok-kyun and Pak Young-hyo, and Bongwon Temple became a center of early Korean reformist activity. After Master Lee Dong-in disappeared, Bongwon expanded into one of the main temples in Seoul during the colonial era. It was around this time that priest Han Yong-woon was pressed to grant approval of priestly marriage, and it became a temple dominated by married monks. New housing was built in and around the temple, and it began to look like the neighborhood we see today. But Bongwon experienced a major convulsion in the 1950s during a severe conflict between celibate and married monks. The status of Bongwon Temple as a haven for married monks made it a center of struggle between the Taego and Choge orders. Now Bongwon is an island stranded, isolated by the dark history of Korean Buddhism. And that island remains barred behind gates of iron. Bongwon Temple once housed the secretariat for the entire Korean Taego order, and each priest receives his own congregation at his home. One of those residences is full of worshippers today. The gathering is at monk Il Wun's home, and they have assembled to attend the naming ceremony of his head acolyte. A head acolyte is a particular priest's disciple, selected to carry on his legacy. Guests are expected to be treated well on days like these, and that's when the female wards, or bosals, get busy serving. Individual priests maintaining followers of their own. This is another unique feature that sets Bongwan Temple apart. The ceremony for today will be held in a large guest room. And one person who's getting busy before it even starts is priest Kyung Am. Because it is he who is responsible for all the arrangement of tables at ceremonies. He then does a thorough check of the fruits and refreshments he prepared to make certain nothing is missing or unsatisfactory. Every single item set on the table is a reflection of his sincere faith. To Kyung Am, his work is a religious practice that propels him to enlightenment. Vegetable trucks come here to deliver, just as they do in other neighborhoods. Sometimes individual priests need offerings for ceremonies at home. The delivery truck supplies Kyung Am with what he needs, freeing him from worry during special occasions or mass offerings. Food for today is prepared at the residence of Il Wun, the VIP for this ceremony. Arrangement and preparation of food must conform strictly to monastic standards, and not a single item goes untouched by Kyung Am's meticulous hands. The foods to be used at such ceremonies or offerings at the temple altar are ensured proper placement by his care. Arrangement of food constitutes a part of an intangible cultural asset. Finally, the ceremony begins in the large room. This ceremony, the Kondang, occurs when a priest receives his religious name. Even for priest monks, the ceremony is a prerequisite for official recognition of their legacy for future generations of disciples. It is the reason why they first pay respects to their ascended master with a memorial rite. The monk being conferred official status receives recognition of it as a religious descendant of generations of past masters. All the monks here at Bongwan are included in the genealogy of Master Powu from Koryo. Including the 3 who are given titles today. Once the rites are over, the monks set paper tablets with their names aflame. It is to report continuation of that religious line to the heavens themselves. And it is followed by the congratulatory speech and sermon by a senior priest.
비춰보게 되면은 허와 실이 원래가 둘이 아니라라고 이렇게 하는 얘기입니다. 제물을 설하시면서
The senior priest presents either a kasaya robe or alms bowl to the monks at this point, blessing them for a smoother spiritual life ahead. Thus, tradition at Bongwan is passed to subsequent generations of monks. This is the story behind the tradition at Bongwan Temple that has continued through generations and centuries. It is Kyung Won's 3rd year as an ordained monk. Once he finishes his studies with textbooks, he will be initiated through the same ceremony, and become another member of the order at Bongwon. But until then, he will remain quietly there with his younger brother. At Bongwon Temple, you'll often witness characteristic events not offered at any other temple. A 120-year-old painting of the Buddha, kept behind the main temple, is carried out by monks to be hung high in the courtyard, and every monk in the neighborhood must lend a hand. They are now preparing for the Yeongsanjae ritual, the pride of Bongwon Temple. While all the monks are busy preparing for this ceremony, there are some unfamiliar faces about the temple. They are here to witness the Bongwon Temple Yeongsanjae, perhaps the most colorful and celebrated of Korea's Buddhist intangible assets. The actual Yeongsanjae ritual begins with the sound of a whistle and Buddha riding out in a sedan chair, with the appearance of all the temple's monks in the courtyard. The Yeongsanjae ritual is a reenactment of the famous sermon by Buddha himself at the Holy Mount. Lasting 3 days from start to finish, it is the quintessence of all Buddhist intangible assets. Bongwon is the only temple in Korea where this ceremony is performed in its entirety. It also represents a fusion of every form of performing art, from dance to music, that Buddhism can muster. For that reason, the ceremony is one of the most important events for someone who wishes to learn about Buddhism. Chinese Buddhism was severely crippled and its tradition ravaged by the Cultural Revolution. And Japanese Buddhism has fared no better, as the tradition of large ceremonies was lost to secularization. Considering this, the Yeongsanjae at Bongwon Temple might very well be one of the few major ceremonies left to modern Buddhism.
Nous avons trouvé la cérémonie très belle et très impressionnante, très belle par son caractère esthétique et profondément religieux. Les moines et la famille honoraient, vénéraient cet ancêtre. Nous n'avons pas de cérémonie aussi marquée dans notre culture occidentale. Ici, on sent l'identité de la Corée, le caractère coréen qui est très marqué par cette cérémonie.
Eh bien, en France également, nous préservons le patrimoine artistique grâce d'abord aux gens eux-mêmes qui sont attachés à leurs monuments, et le gouvernement également donne des subventions pour l'entretien de nos monuments et de notre patrimoine religieux.
The Yeongsanjae ritual is one of our valued traditional assets, a ceremony transcending the realm of religion into art. It incorporates every form of performance, including music and chants, and even set tables presented as stage art under the name table arrangements. Perhaps the community of priests at Bongwon defend their traditions simply by keeping alive what is uniquely theirs, living in an isolated zone of tradition. But faith in Buddhism refuses to die on this desert isle. The faith lives on in the form of the Goddess of Mercy lecture series, held once every month. These meetings have acquired a novel image by inviting guest speakers, even non-clerics, from outside. The 3000 Buddha lecture event held recently serves as an outstanding example. The lecturer on that day was the renowned Eastern philosopher Kim Yong-ok. In a remarkable visit, not long after the lecture began, the oldest monk at Bongwon appeared in front of the 3000 Buddha sanctum. His name is Li Man Bong, and he specializes in roof ornament danchung painting, the 49th intangible cultural asset. He came to the meeting simply as another family member of Bongwon Temple. Upon noticing his entrance, the speaker stops and pays him his deepest respect. The assemblage includes not only members, but Pak Song Am as well, a skill holder for Yongsan-je, the 50th intangible cultural asset. He bowed 3 times to the statue of Buddha immediately following his entry, as a gesture of his status as Buddha's disciple and a member of the Bongwon family.
생각해보세요. 우리가 가만히 생각을 해보시면은 어쨌든 이 대처승 제도라고 하는 것은 일제시대 때 이렇게 해서 또 다시 들어온 제도고, 그렇기 때문에 우리나라 일제시대 때 사실은 훌륭한 스님들이 다 대처가 된 분들이 많아요. 그런데 그분들은 어떤 데서 우리나라 불교의 사실은 정통적 불교의 계승을 하고 있었던 분들이에요. 그런데 갑자기 대처라는 제도의 변화 때문에 그걸 갑자기 기분을 바꾸려니까 무리하는 정화가 시작됐다고 말이에요. 그러니까 이제부터는 뭐냐, 대처라는 제도를 적극적으로 하나의 불교의 승려의 수행의 한 방법으로서 적극적으로 인식을 해야 되고, 그럼에 따라서 또 거기에 걸맞는 새로운 운동이 태어나야 된다.
The guest Kim is conducted on a special tour of Bongwon Temple.
스님의 삶의 방식이 다양한 삶의 방식이 있을 수 있다는 것을 인식시키는 것이 중요한데, 그런 방법이라고 하는 것은 교육을 통해서, 그래서 훌륭한 학생들이 많이 나오고 그런 예술적인 스님들이 많이 나와서 우리나라 불교를 윤택하게 하는 그런 전통을 만들어가야만 된다고 생각합니다.
In that village, people live together on the border between the everyday and the revered. And the course of their lives represents a mentality totally alien to those outside that island. It is where the faith and sorrows of people crash on its shores like tidal waves. And such are the lives they will continue to live into an unforeseeable future. Their lives will transcend time's limits, like the timeless image of the Buddha created by this old man. Just like the distinctive chanting of this religious community spreading through the city skies, distinct from all the urban bustle. For life is a process of seeking proof of what one believes, as one proceeds day by day.